Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. What we're going to have a look at today is the good news that we have Jupiter, Saturn, and also finally Pluto going direct in the sign of Capricorn. So the year 2020 has been a big year with these three signs in Capricorn conjunct each other on and off throughout the year. And this sort of energy hasn't happened since the 1200s. And it won't happen again in your lifetime. And I think we can all easily say that this year has been a big year of looking at the world from a different point of view, the way that we see the world. Saturn being in its own sign of Capricorn, we have for sure seen a restructuring of the way that our society is, the way our rules and regulations are, and all the things that come to living in society. And Pluto represents transformation. And although Pluto has been in Capricorn for some years and will remain there for a few more, so for sure the transformation is not complete. It is now going direct, going straight rather than retrograde. So it's time for these energies to be moving forward. They are moving towards Aquarius. And all of us have learned something about these energies depending upon where they are in your chart. And what I'm going to do today is take a tarot card for each of these three, depending on the house as well. And we'll talk about what energies we see there for you now that the three of them are moving forward. Okay, and just a little word on how to use this video. Because right now, Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto are very, very close to each other, probably they are all in the same house for you. So, for example, if Capricorn is taking up most of your fourth house, then probably Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto are there. Pluto is at 22 degrees of Capricorn, and Saturn and Jupiter are just a few degrees after this. So do check, because potentially you might have Pluto, for example, in the fourth house, but Saturn and Jupiter are now in the fifth, depending on your chart. And of course, if you don't know how to make your chart, you can make one very easily on astro.com, or if you want to check me out at my website, I can of course make one for you. So just let me know. And the way I'm going to do the tarot cards is I'm going to pre-shuffle the cards for houses 1, 2 and 3, do those readings, return the cards back to the decks, and then do 4, 5 and 6 and so on, in case any of the energies are going to be true for more than one house. Take a look now at the first house. And let's see what we have here for Jupiter, now that Jupiter is going direct. Okay, so we have the 10 of Pentacles. So that means that perhaps this year you have been in some way expanding your horizons in any way that you can, considering probably you've been sort of spending a lot of time by yourself. And maybe you've decided to put all your efforts into building something materially for yourself. And this is saying that as Jupiter goes direct, all of this is coming to wonderful fruition. And that's really timely, because in December, Jupiter will be entering Aquarius. And Aquarius is most likely your second house, or most of it is your second house. And when Jupiter is in our second house, this is the time that we can expect a real expansion in terms of our resources. So I think this is a wonderful sign that all the work that you've been doing this year is for sure has paid off and is coming to fruition very, very soon, and probably as Jupiter enters your second house. If we take a look at Saturn, we have the Hermit in reverse. So when we take a look at the Hermit, potentially, yes, of course, most of the year when Saturn was retrograde, you have been the Hermit the right way up, in terms of you've spent a lot of time alone, perhaps on your own, or being quite wanting to be very self-reflective. As Saturn now goes forward, you are ready for the restructuring. Okay, Saturn is all about restructuring, and the Hermit in reverse suggests that you've done a lot of your internal work and you're ready to proceed with all the ideas, all the things that you did ponder and come up with, and plans you were making for yourself while you were the Hermit upright. So I think this is also a sign that it is time to go ahead with everything that you've been incubating during 2020. And finally, Pluto, the planet of transformation, and we have Justice in the reverse position. So Justice in the reverse position may be indicating that you've been perhaps unfairly pushing yourself too much. You've been really spending a lot of time this year thinking about who you are and who you want to be. And perhaps your inner critic is really too strong, and you're pushing yourself to change too fast, to transform too much. So I think the other two indicate that everything you've done is absolutely on the right track, and you really have made the most of 2020. But maybe you feel like it's still not enough and you're being too harsh on yourself. So as Pluto has just turned direct, I think it's saying to watch your inner critic. It will hold you back from your ultimate transformation. Thanks, group 1. Okay, now for Capricorn in the second house. So the second house is all about the way that we search to make money, the inner values that we have, our self-worth, all the things about ourself, our worth, our own resources. And so a lot has been going on in this part of your life this year. So let's see what Jupiter has to say now that it's going direct. We have the Two of Pentacles. So, which seems to indicate that in the Jupiter ways of life, so in the ways that your second house has been expanding your outlook and your point of view and your beliefs about second house issues, and that the way they are structured, Capricorn, has been keeping you really busy. You either have been really busy with, perhaps you've done more this year and not less, and that you are actually trying to manage your priorities right now. So as Jupiter moves forward, and soon it will be in your third house, it's time to think about your priorities, to perhaps think about your thoughts and beliefs and ultimate truth about what your priorities should be. And now Saturn in the second house, we have the Sun in reverse. So this indicates that perhaps this year, with the heavy energy of Saturn in its own sign and in a very dense earth sign, also with the second house being Taurus energy, perhaps you really have not had a lot of fun. And I think the first card indicates the same. It hasn't been an enjoyable year for you. You've forgotten about joy and playfulness. It's kind of a card to call you back to restructuring your life now that Saturn is going forward, to structure your life in a way that also allows for much more fun and joy, and much more playfulness. Okay, and finally Pluto. So Pluto is the way that you are transforming and have been transforming and transforming those parts of your life. And the Six of Cups sort of reverberates this message here about the inner child, because the Six of Cups can represent your childhood. It can represent the inner child, all that sort of nostalgia for the things that you probably enjoyed doing when you were a child. So I think there is really a calling across the board from all three of them here, saying that you've probably been working too hard. You haven't had much fun. You have a lot on your plate, and none of it is fun, and none of it is joyful, none of it delights your inner child. And that as all of this energy is moving forward now, hopefully you've seen all that and you are restructuring your life in these final few months of all this strong Capricorn energy, so that the way that your values reflect perhaps some of those values of your inner child, and the self-worth comes from who you knew yourself to be as a child. So I think it's quite a strong message there for those of you who have Capricorn in your second house. Okay, and now for those of you with Capricorn in the third house. So the third house is all about communication and learning and fact gathering. It's also the house of the siblings and sort of more immediate community. Also to do with other Mercury things like short travel and all the sort of real busyness of day-to-day life and the way that we communicate with each other. So let's see what Jupiter has to say about that. So perhaps this year, in that house of communication, no doubt there has been quite an expansion and taking a different point of view, for sure. I think we all have had to use technology in a way that we haven't used it before. And this card seems to say that you've been quite victorious in the way that you have expanded your communications. And so if you were wondering if you're on the right track with the way that you're doing things, perhaps some sort of communication for work, this is saying that yes, the viewpoint that you've taken, that what you have expanded is leading you to victory. So that's a good sign. With Saturn, we have the Ace of Pentacles. So with Saturn, probably there's been a lot of revisions and revising going on around communication, okay? Or perhaps you've been restructuring your learning, or the way you learn, or what you want to learn, and the information that you gather together. And this Ace of Pentacles indicates a new beginning in the material side of life. So perhaps the restructuring that you have been doing with regards to learning something new, and building a new foundation in your education, is the right track to also being the right beginning for new material wealth. So it's lots of good news there, I think. And Pluto has here the Two of Cups in reverse. So this is talking about that there is some disharmony. It could be disharmony in a relationship. Perhaps there is some sort of friction in a relationship that is like a sibling relationship, or is a sibling relationship, and the disharmony is probably caused by problems with communication being in that house as well. So Pluto will be around in this sign for, as I said, a few more years. So I think despite all this success that we see from these planets that have been in Capricorn for the shorter term, I think Pluto is trying to say you need to think carefully about a relationship, a partnership of some kind, and the disharmony that has been and is potentially getting worse due to problems in the way that you are communicating. So I hope something there resonates with you. Okay, taking a look now at the fourth house. And so the fourth house is about nurturing and about your emotional life. It's also about family. So perhaps you've been experiencing quite a lot of change in those areas this year. If we have a look at Jupiter, we had this for another group, we have the Justice card in reverse. So in terms of the expansions that have been happening in the fourth house, something about that has seemed unfair to you, and perhaps has been unfair, or perhaps you are the one who's being unfair to others in your family. You're being unfair on your emotional self. You're unfairly blaming your emotions on others, or this is happening to you. So I think Jupiter is asking you to reflect on the elements that have been unfair and the way in which you or others have been in some way morally dishonest with your emotions. It's something to reflect on going forward. If we have a look at Saturn, we get the Page of Cups. And so Saturn in Capricorn in the fourth house is probably talking a lot about the foundation of your emotional life, the foundations and the restructuring of your family life. And the Page of Cups is really asking you to try some new things when it comes to those aspects. So perhaps to try a new way of dealing with your emotions, and therefore perhaps dealing with those who trigger your emotions, which may just be your family. I mean, you've been in close quarters with them this year, most likely. And so perhaps it's asking you to think about some sort of new journaling technique, or some sort of grounding technique, or something to do with reparenting the inner child, any of those things. It's asking you to wait for and look for some new inspiration in how you deal with your emotional world. Okay, oh, interesting. So Pluto here has the Page of Cups in reverse. So the exact opposite for what we just saw. So perhaps Pluto is really saying, Pluto is about, like Saturn is about what we do, the work we do. Pluto is about the way that we are changing and transforming. And so perhaps this is really to say to you, look, really, whether you're feeling out of touch with your intuition, you are out of touch with your emotions, you are not processing them properly, you really need to do this work, do this emotional work. I think is really what's saying, and Pluto is saying that this is essential to your transformation, that you need to look to Saturn. Perhaps they look back and back and back to each other. All this injustice you feel, all of this unfairness you feel, really, let's come back to the emotions of it. we need some emotional healing, because the way that you're seeing things as being unfair is perhaps not really the way that things are. You need to do the emotional work, and that unless you do the emotional work, there is this danger that you will remain stuck and you will not transform from some level of emotional immaturity. So that one there is quite a tough but a useful message. Let's take a look now at the 5th house. And the 5th house is to do with creativity and romance and children and our creative self-expression and all of those things. So this year, perhaps you've been spending quite a bit of time indulging in some creative passions, and you've had the time perhaps with all this time to yourself. So maybe you've been discovering a lot there. So let's see what Jupiter has to say. So, okay, it's got the Page of Wands in reverse, which indicates that perhaps you've been, you had some big visions for yourself this year. So maybe you thought this is the time to expand. Got the time and the opportunity to really expand my interests, my creative endeavors, to spend time on it. This will lead to something big. This will lead to a change in my life. And then you found that you tried different things and nothing has come to fruition yet. Right? And that's the important one, yet. It's time to, Page of Wands in reverse says don't give up hope on that. You need a revision. You need to go back and think about perhaps which of those projects or which of those new creative endeavors really lines up with what you intend for yourself and what really represents who you are and what you want to express. Okay, and then we have for Saturn, we have the 4 of Cups. So the 4 of Cups is when your cup is full. You're not really interested in, you're not interested in those other 3 cups. You're like, I've got this cup, that's good. I'm not looking to do more. So that's a good thing, or that really ties in with what is being said here. If Saturn is going direct now and is asking you to get on with the work, like it's time to start working now, it's saying, okay, just focus on one cup, right? Just focus on one choice. And that's what the Page of Wands in reverse is asking you to reflect on, which choice aligns with who you are, and to not give up hope about it. And Saturn is saying with this 4 of Cups to really be focusing on just that one and just really not looking at anything else, to fulfill yourself with this one choice. So I think those really go together. And with Pluto, we have the 3 of Swords in reverse. So this seems to be saying that what is holding you back from your ultimate transformation in this area of your life is your own negative self-talk. Like you're breaking your own heart, really, by whatever negative self-talk is keeping you back from working on the creative project that you know you want to be and should be working on, and holding yourself back from your own dreams, telling yourself that it's not working, you can't do it, it's not going to happen. Pluto is saying to really change your life, to come through this truly transformed, to stop breaking your own heart. Okay, let's take a look now at the 6th house. And so the 6th house is to do with perhaps your work and your routines and your health, and also the way in which you analyze and the way in which you look at yourself as well. So let's take a look at what Jupiter wants to say. Okay, so we have the Knight of Pentacles in reverse. So this is really asking you to either reflect on and create for yourself some more stability by creating more routines, which is interesting because that's what the sixth house is about. It's really asking you to look at those routines. So either you didn't, or you haven't had much of a routine, or you've let your routine really go this year. Your exercise, your health, your eating, your sleeping, everything like that. Or your routines have been so rigid that they're stifling you. So it could go either way. I suppose you will know which one that is. So it's asking you to revise your routines. Either you need more because you've had none, or what you created for yourself is so rigid that you can't breathe and it is affecting your health. So, okay. Then we have the sun. Okay, so Saturn is all about that restructuring. What we're saying here, we're talking about the routine. Saturn is about the restructuring. Perhaps it's saying that if you really do this, if you really do what is mentioned here, then the foundations you will build, and in the restructuring process, you will, or you have been, really having all your wishes come true. You're filled with full optimism, or if you do that, you will have optimism again. You will see the bright future ahead of you. Things will get on the move in the right way. And for Pluto, we have here the Knight of Swords. So in terms of transforming the sixth house area of your life, it's really saying this is the time to take action, to it's now, go now, right now, this is the time to do it. It is Virgo season for a little bit longer. So, yeah. Oh, no, it's not. It's Libra season. Sorry. We're out of that. I was thinking about my past video about Venus in Virgo. My apologies there. No, but either way, it is saying that for all this Virgo energy, which is the sixth house, now is the time to really take action and to go full steam ahead on what is suggested in these two to really transform this area of your life. Moving on to the seventh house now. And so the seventh house is really about your most significant relationship, usually your partner. So let's take a look at what Jupiter is saying. Okay, so this is great. So this is the card of marriage. Often it's the card that represents the wedding sort of celebration, and that sort of real harmony. So perhaps this year there has been a real development in your relationship, or if you're single, then it is saying that perhaps you're all at preparedness for relationship or successful relationship, or perhaps you've met someone that is going to expand and lead this way. Jupiter will be going into your 8th house very soon, by the end of the year into next year, and that is the house of marriage. So perhaps it is all indicating that things are going that way, that there is something about a commitment, a strong relationship that is forming, has been forming this year. And so then we look at Saturn. Okay, and we've got the High Priestess in reverse. So that's a little bit contrary perhaps to what the first card is saying. So perhaps the foundations that you are building in this relationship or the way that things have changed and restructured in this relationship. You know, you're not really listening to your intuition about them. Something that you haven't been listening to your intuition about. So perhaps things are going in a direction, maybe they are going in this direction, and you're going with that flow, but what's your intuition telling you about the foundation of your relationship, or the foundation of the way in which you're approaching relationships or partnerships in general? And with Pluto, we have the 8 of Swords. So yeah, I mean, okay, so this gives another clue. So Pluto is all about transformation and the way in which your relationships are transforming, and it's hanging around in the 7th house for a while to come still. And the 8 of Swords represents that you feel imprisoned, but you're imprisoning yourself. It's you who are holding yourself back. You're not really trapped. So yeah, something about your relationship, there's some mixed messages here. It's like moving in one direction, but you're not really listening to your intuition about some of the foundational things. And perhaps you feel that you are trapped, or you're not tuned in to the extent to which really you're trapping yourself. Okay, or perhaps you're not listening to your intuition about how if you do go ahead with this, you will be trapping yourself. I mean, that's quite a strong message, and that won't be for everybody. That's quite strong and negative, but it does seem that that story plays out. Could be in a different way, that we could read it from the opposite direction, from the heavier energy to the lighter Jupiter, or the faster moving Jupiter. We could be saying you are trapping yourself. You're not really tuned in to yourself, and unless you stop these and tune into yourself, then you can't get to what you really want. This will be prevented from happening. So, I mean, it could be read either way. I ask you to tune into what about that message is true for you. Let's take a look now at House 8. And House 8 is all about transformation. So really with Pluto there, you're getting quite a strong dose of transformation over many years in this house. A real restructuring and complete change. It can be to do with sex and death and taxes and other people's money and all those things that people say, but ultimately it's about transforming and coming out as a new person due to really bonding and merging with something else. So let's take a look. If we have a look at Jupiter, we have the 5 of Cups, which indicates that you're looking at what you've lost, and you don't see the 2 cups behind you. So you see this 1 cup fallen over, it's empty. You're looking at that, you feel lost, you feel that you have lost things, you feel like with lost hope, perhaps even some abandonment as well. So perhaps something has occurred in one of your deepest relationships, and the effect of it has left you feeling without direction. But Jupiter, which wants you to open your mind and expand your mind, is saying don't forget what you still have. You have some treasures left and you're not looking at them, and you need to be. Okay, so Saturn has the 2 of Wands. So I guess based off this, if we're looking at what Saturn is saying about the restructuring, you are making a choice. There's something you're deciding on, but it's not time to take action. It's still time to be just thinking about which way you're going to go with it. So if you're thinking about changes you need to make, changes you want to make, ways in which you do want to change and restructure your life, still think about it. It's still time to be meditating on it, even with Saturn going direct. Perhaps Saturn in retrograde really tore some things down, and you're not ready to take action yet. It's time to think about what action you will take. And then here we have for Pluto the Emperor. And so the Emperor represents the best of what Capricorn has to offer, really, in terms of wisdom, the wise man, the man who listens to other people and takes on board everything they're saying before making a decision, which is important leading on from this card as well. So it's really saying that to get through this transformation, and as I say, Pluto will be around in this house for another few years, you really want to be looking at gathering all the wisdom that you can. It's not time to take action. It's not time to try and make the actual huge changes. The changes will come about by really pondering and thinking deeply and making the wise choices, not just by making any choice or any change. So perhaps that's not super specific, it's more vague or more about the energies or point of view or perspective to take, but hopefully still useful. Taking a look now for house number 9, and that is the house of your philosophies, your beliefs, your truth, your intuition, expanding your horizons. It's really the Jupiter house. So Jupiter is really in its own house here. It's about the way that you expand your world, expand your mind, and all those sorts of things. So let's take a look at what Jupiter is saying. It's temperance we have here. So with Jupiter in your 9th house this year, and with the situation that has been going on in the world, I suppose, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of missed opportunities in terms of being able to really get out there on adventures and have Jupiter do its thing in its own house. So I think this card is asking you to really have patience about that, to kind of be more moderate and balanced about your outlook on the fact that perhaps you didn't get, maybe you plan to travel a lot this year, or perhaps you really wanted to, I don't know, lay the foundations of a more adventurous life or something like that, and that hasn't happened. And so you're being asked to have some patience about that, because other things are coming, I suppose. It's for a reason. If we have a look at Saturn, we have the Knight of Cups in reverse, which does seem to say that with everything that's been going on, with perhaps everything that Saturn tore down, took away from you, you've been experiencing, I guess, really some moodiness about that, and perhaps you've had a few tantrums about it, and quite a, yeah, an emotional perspective on everything, and you haven't really, like, I guess your emotions have really taken you over about everything that's been happening. And so I guess you know, this asking for you to have some patience again ties in with that. If we have a look at Pluto, here we have the Queen of Swords represented here, and the Queen of Swords, in terms of, like, let's say this transformation, the transformation of your beliefs, your philosophies, your, I guess, everything you've been thinking about, perhaps what your year would have been in terms of what an adventurous life is. The Queen of Swords is really able to harness the power of her thoughts to change anything, not only her thoughts, but also to change her words, to change her beliefs, to change all that mental activity, to do so easily and with great strength. So I think Pluto is saying that the key to sort of transforming is you do need to harness the energy of the Queen of Swords in terms of having some strength over your thoughts to really conquer this moodiness that you've been experiencing, and to restore some patience and balance back to this area of your life. I mean, there's many ways to expand your life. It's not just through travel. It's not just through perhaps whatever you had imagined for yourself in the way of higher learning or learning about other cultures and things like that. You can do all those things still, even with the restrictions in place. It's a matter of really using the power of your mind to find the way to transform and restructure that. Okay, so taking a look now at house 10. So house 10 is Capricorn energy doubled over. So Saturn in there, I mean, you've had a heavy dose of it, and it's really the house of career and how you're going to be out in the world, and being your own authority, and the extent to which you have really good integrity, and all of that. So, but if we think about it in terms of career, probably let's have a look. So Jupiter has been in your house of career for some time, and recently went direct, and it seems like you have a lot to celebrate with regards to your career, and it's as though, I mean, this is like the marriage card, but perhaps it is just really saying that, I mean, you may have successfully and with full want become sort of married to your career. I mean, the expanded opportunities that you've had in that area this year because of Jupiter have come to fruition in the way that you want, in a way that you are ready to celebrate. And yeah, it could just be a good sign, or that is the outcome of the year. That is the way that it is heading. So, although, I mean, it could also mean, I suppose, if we think of it as married to your career, then is that a good thing? Is that really what you want? Okay, then we have Saturn and we have the Emperor. Wow. So not only do we have the 10th house in Capricorn, and we're talking about the Saturn card, and now we are talking about the Emperor, which is the Capricorn card, which is exactly the same Saturn energy. So, okay, so that's like a 4-time repeat signature here. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of heaviness here, but hopefully a lot of wisdom as well. So hopefully it's not the negative energy, and it is upright, so it suggests it's the positive energy. That in this year, a lot of deep, heavy stuff has been going on in terms of the restructuring and the laying of the foundations of your career and of your public life. But it is saying that going forward, you need to, I guess, keep on the same track, and keep on this same track with a lot of wisdom, and really listening to your colleagues, and taking the wisdom from them, and including it in your own decisions for yourself. And so for Pluto, we have the Queen of Cups in reverse. Yeah, so ending with this, and Pluto is about transformation, does seem to say that, I mean, the Queen of Cups in reverse is asking for you to take time out for you, and that it is a time to really be reflecting on your emotions, the way you nurture yourself, to really like have more of the Cancer energy and direct it towards yourself. So if it's true that we say you are married to your career and this has been a very serious and heavy year, this is saying now, as Pluto has just gone direct, you really need to be also making time for your own, the way in which you nurture yourself, the way in which you show yourself self-love. Okay, having a look at house 11, which is the house of your friendships, your associations, and sort of the groups that you belong to. It's also to do with being sort of revolutionary and humanitarian and all those things. So, but let's think of it in terms of those friendship groups. So for Jupiter, we have the Magician in reverse. So Jupiter in the 11th house in Capricorn would have indicated an expansion of the structure of your friendships and associations. The Magician in reverse seems to say there has been manipulation in a negative way, so in a way that was as a means of control. Now, whether this is from you or has happened to you, or maybe you haven't even realized it, but you need to reflect on the extent to which manipulation has been a part of what has been going on and is going on going forward. With Saturn, we have a Justice. We've had the Justice card quite a few times, and this is, I think, the second time or third time in reverse. So this is all about unfairness. So it's really asking the same things, that perhaps in the foundations that you have been building or that have been built with these friends, there's some sort of moral injustice, some unfairness, either coming from you or from them, or both. And you really need to be reflecting on that, because these two things are really affecting the expansion and foundation of these relationships. Basically building them on sand rather than, building them on a strong foundation. Now, Pluto, the planet of transformation, has the Four of Swords in reverse, which is really indicating complete exhaustion and burnout. So either it's a warning to say that if this goes on, this is how you will feel, and this is how your friendships will transform you in this way, by exhausting you. Or it is already happening and you already feel this exhaustion. So yeah, it's asking you to really take a look at the groups that you belong to. Could be your family group even, or probably though more your friends and associates, and to look at this energy that seems to be happening and to really consider what it's really going to mean for you. And finally, we have the 12th house. So the 12th house can be quite a heavy house. I mean, it's the house of spirituality, but it's also the house of sort of isolation and your own, as I say, the house of your like self-undoing. It used to be the house of like prison and being obviously all on the negative side, and like psychiatric wards and things like this. So it's the extent to which you hold yourself back from reality and you're secluded from that, and obviously on the positive side, the extent to which you are doing the work to really merge with your spiritual self. So let's take a look at what Jupiter is saying. We have the Nine of Pentacles. So Jupiter has probably, especially when retrograde, expanded your sense of isolation in many ways, or the ways in which you had to really go into yourself. And the Nine of Pentacles says that you've just become really self-sufficient now. So perhaps you've been going really deep this year and it's been really transformative, and you've become really good at it in a way that you really know the inside of yourself. You're really spiritually connected on your own without needing other people to connect you to spirit. So you don't need any leaders, any gurus. You're following yourself. You've done the work, and you are really creating for yourself your own spiritual wealth. So that's quite a great outcome. I hope you've experienced that, or it's coming to fruition now. Okay, and then for Saturn we have the Six of Pentacles. So this Saturn, I'm sure that a lot has been torn down for you. This would have been or is the year of letting go of what Saturn is tearing down. And as Saturn goes forwards and restructures, this is really saying it's a time perhaps to give and receive. But perhaps since you are the one who has really created a lot of self-sufficiency for yourself, of spiritual wealth, it's time to give some of that back. So perhaps there's a way to give what you've learnt, or to give, or to make your new sort of spiritual foundation, the act and the art of giving, first as a priority, and that perhaps that this is a part of your spiritual practice going forward, is to give. And Pluto says here with the Queen of Wands in reverse. So the way in which you are transforming is, let's take a look, is to really perhaps to remain quite introspective, because the Queen of Wands reversed is about perhaps keeping to yourself, not really being out there and initiating, but to not be so social, to that all of this perhaps, unfortunately, but I mean Pluto is staying in your sign for another few years. Maybe, I mean, you probably have felt a lot of isolation, but it's for a purpose. It's for, so that you can really achieve this, so that you can really have this self-sufficiency in your own spirituality. You've done a lot. You have a lot to give in this area now, but also it's not over. And so perhaps it's still a lot of time needs to be spent alone to really build on and fully transform and make the most of this Pluto transit through your 12th house, which will never happen again. It is the deep transformation, and you're being asked to really go it alone. So thanks so much for watching, and I really love it if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, spread the word about my channel so that other people can also start to tune into these energies. It would be great if you could help me get the word out there. Thanks so much and see you soon.